A lot of times we talk about the best stocks to buy right now, but a better question is, how do you decide what stocks to buy versus the ones that you should absolutely avoid? Like, what is a process that you use to decide this is the stock that I want to buy right now? Let's go ahead and break it down. Today, I'm going to give you a little bit of the recipe. I wouldn't call it a secret recipe per se, but I'm going to give you the checklist that I use to decide what stock I'm going to buy and what stock is good for me to put my hard-earned money into. And the great thing is this, it's pretty simple, as are most things that I like to do, because if it's simple, it is repeatable, and it is something that can be written on a single page. In fact, it is a half page, not even a whole page. Okay, and there's a lot of white space on here, so it doesn't even fill up a whole page, which is great because I believe in simplicity. So the first thing on the list is this: momentum. Okay, one word. And there are a bunch of ways that you can fine-tune the definition of momentum. I define it as this: the stock being positive. Okay, and when I talk about like deeper detail within my courses and deeper detail within inside the members only, we like fine-tune exactly what that means. But basically, again, the stock has to be positive. I would prefer, when I talk about momentum, that this specific stock is doing better than its peers. So if I'm talking about tech stock, it had better be doing better than all the other tech stocks in its category. So let's take a chip maker, Intel, which last I checked was not doing well. So if I'm looking at a chip maker, let's say Lam Research Corp, which was doing well, I don't know where it is right now, but if I'm looking at Intel, if I'm looking at Lam Research Corp, I'm going to look at every other chip maker, and it needs to do better than everybody else, and I would prefer it to do better than the entire S&P 500. That is because I have a limited sum of money, and I imagine you have a limited sum of money. And what that means is I only got but so much money to invest, whether it's a monthly basis or just in general. So let's say that I've got $10,000 to invest, right? And I can put it all inside of an index fund, which is where I put the majority of my money. Okay, I think that is what the majority of us should do, is put the majority of your money in an index fund. But let's say I'm taking $2,000 and I just want to put it in some individual stocks. Well, if I'm taking $2,000 out of that pot and I'm putting it somewhere else, I am risking putting that money somewhere else. If I'm going to risk my money putting it in some other stock, you had better do better, right? Of lack of a better term, you had better do better than what I could have done somewhere else. So it's a risk versus reward. I am risking leaving the money somewhere else. So I need that company to do better than the S&P 500. I need that company to do better than the other choices that I had. So if I'm investing in a tech stock, like I mentioned earlier, if I'm investing in a finance stock, if I'm investing in an oil stock or what have you, you have to do better than everybody else in your category and then the entire stock market. Now, obviously, we only have previous data. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for in the past. And then when it's time for me to reevaluate, which for me is every 6 months or every year, then I'll come back and say, all right, look, I invested in NRG. Did NRG beat the entire stock market? Yes or no? Did NRG beat the rest of its peers? Yes or no? If the answer is no on both of those, the stock is gone. That's just it. If the answer is no on both of those, sometimes it's, all right, well, I'm getting rid of this one, and I'm going to switch it out for something else. When I sold Nike for my kids, it didn't cross the finish line for either one of those, right? It's a running shoe. It didn't do better than the stock market. It didn't do better than other clothing brands. It didn't do better than other shoe brands. Why am I still holding this? I took on extra risk, and you didn't pass the bar. Buy. That's it. You didn't do what you're supposed to do, right? So that's easily like one of the easy things for me when it comes to like selling a stock and buying a stock. And that's just my personal process. Whereas others will say, well, it's Nike, it pays a dividend, it's a good brand, they do marketing. I don't care. The first thing was momentum, and you failed that test. You can leave now. Next, right? So that's just how I personally do it. That's just the first one on this list. Perhaps it gets more interesting, at least to me. All right, the next one is I need you to be within the top 10% of the S&P 500. Now, it doesn't exactly has to be the S&P 500, but you're going to find out exactly why I prefer the S&P 500. So, easy math here. 10% of 500 is 50. For me and my schedule, 50 is a handful. It's not really a handful, but that's enough stocks for me to sift through and make a decision on. Okay, now I'm gonna be honest with you. I cannot sit here and deeply research and flip through 20 pages of 50 different stocks. But that is enough for me to say, okay, I've heard of 20 of these companies. Here are 10 I've never heard of. Here are 5 of these I'm absolutely not investing in. Like, that's enough to eyeball and know this sector I'm investing in, these I'm not, this stock is terrible. Like, that's enough, right, to get through 50 companies. Okay, for me, somebody who's been doing it for close to 15 years. Okay, 50 is doable. Well, there's the Russell 2000. That's 200 companies if you're looking at 10%. That's not, I'm too busy for that. Okay, that's just me. Okay, perhaps other people got more free time. I do not. I'm a dad. I do this. I don't have it. Okay, that's just me. Okay, but there are also several studies that have shown that the top 10% in terms of performance of the S&P 500 tends to outperform the rest of the S&P. So I just want to pick from what is already doing better. The way I like to look at this, I don't want no struggle story. I don't want no underdog stock. I don't want none of that. Skip all that. That makes a great movie. They don't necessarily make the best portfolio. And honestly, I'm not looking for a great story portfolio. I want to pick from the top shelf only. I don't want the discount. I don't want the underrated stock. Give me the best, okay? I want to pick from the 99 rated team on College Football 25, okay? Just give me that. Give me Patrick Mahomes on Madden and give me all of that. That's who I'm playing with. I'm sorry, okay? When it comes to my money and my portfolio, I don't want none of that underrated stuff, okay? We can save that for a different day, in a different time, in a different game mode. Not for this, okay? So I want to pick from the top shelf. So I'm choosing the top 10%, the companies I already know have done well. Why would I go and dig in the dumpster, in the trash, and hope and pray that they continue to do well? On Friday, we talked about and analyzed Southwest Airlines, which is not doing well now, and I think it can do well in the future. Go back and check that video. I think that card's actually going to be here. But we talked about how it could do well. But in that video, I specifically said I wouldn't buy it now. Not now. It's in the trash. I'm not going to buy it today. I think it could be, on its way up to the top shelf eventually and around the corner. Keep an eye on it. I'm not spending I work 2 hours of my money. I don't know about you, right? I'm not going to do that today, right? So I want to pick from the top shelf. And these are mandatory things. You got to have momentum. You got to be in the top 10% of the S&P 500 to get a look from your boy, okay? Just like valedictorian and all that stuff, you got to be in that upper echelon to just be looked at and researched by me, okay? Now, next year is optional. You don't have to hit this, but I highly, highly prefer it, and that is insider buyers. Insiders are considered people on the board of directors, CEO, CFO, as the chief financial officer. Sometimes I think this includes the chief marketing officer, the big wigs, the people who make the decisions that we care about and that do impact the company. And when they buy and sell, they do have to report this to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and it's filed in a system called EDGAR. I do not remember the entire acronym for EDGAR, but it's also reported on several other sites. I actually covered a video on Insider Members Only on how you can find out all that information and analyze exactly how much they bought and sold, and gives you the date and everything you need to know about it. Here's the thing. I want to know when they bought, okay? I want to follow the money. It's only one reason as to why somebody would buy is because they believe that it is going to go up. And there was a study, I think it was by Harvard in the 1990s, that showed that if you were to put a dot and a date from the time they bought that stock and compare it to the stock market, those stocks do better than the stock market. If you notice a trend here, you'll see that I like to do things that are better than the entire stock market. That's 3, right? I want momentum, that's better than the stock market. I want the top 10% that's better than the stock market. If you are somebody or an insider buyer, I want you to do better than the stock market. I want to buy when you buy, because when you buy, you do better than the stock market. There's a trend. I want to win here. Okay, that's what we like to do. I like to win. I want you to win. I want you to subscribe so that we can all win together. And y'all subscribers who have been here for a while, y'all know more often than not, because your boy's not perfect. I'm not perfect at all, and I tell y'all when it don't work, right? But more often than not, we do win together, right? We pick some winners. But that's the thing here. I want to stack the deck in my favor, okay? This is not a, oh, let's play on an even playing ground and let's play fair. No, this is the stock market. I want to stack every single advantage in my favor. That's what I'm trying to do here. That is what the checklist is for. So when I get all the information I can, I get to make my own checklist. What you mean? I'm putting all the stuff in my favor, okay? So these are all the things I'm looking for. And if I know or have an opportunity to see that they just bought, then that's what I'm looking for. Now the issue here is why this option is because I personally am only checking my portfolio but so many times a year. And I don't get a notification. I'm not aware of a system or an app that gives you a notification when these people buy and for what stocks they're buying for. Perhaps there's something out there. If there is, let me know. Do I need to invent that? Maybe I do. Okay, I don't know if I have the skills to do that, but I can learn things. In either case, I only check my stocks but so often. So, the rare case, again, the next time I'm making changes to my portfolio is in December. Is that one time that I'm checking in December going to be the one stock that I happen to add to my portfolio and I just happen to look at it? It's a lot of ifs, whole lot of ifs there. But what I do try to see is, have they bought within the last 3 months or so, maybe in the last 6 months? Then if so, I need to buy that stock now. If not, okay, you hit everything else on the checklist. So not mandatory, but very encouraging if they have. Next on the list is something that is absolutely mandatory, is it's got to beat the S&P 500. Now earlier I said momentum. Momentum just says, hey, it's positive. Hey, it's, perhaps better than its competitors, but it's just positive. This one, you got to be better than the S&P 500. You got to do better than the entire stock market, because I could have just invested in the stock market and left stuff alone. A stock can be positive and still not beat the S&P 500. For example, the stock market, I don't know exactly by the time that you're watching this video where the stock market's going to be, because I don't have a crystal ball, but the stock market can be up 20% in a particular year. The stock that you may own may be up 5%. Okay, you may have momentum. By my definition, the stock is up, but you did not beat the S&P 500 by any stretch of the imagination. That's not good enough for me. Okay, opportunity cost here, lost, again, opportunity cost 15%. That's what that means. I could have, the money I invested in that stock, I could have made 15% more by leaving it in that index fund. You cost me money because you didn't meet the goal here of risk versus reward, risk versus return. So no, you're getting dropped, and I'm going to put the money either back in the index fund or in something I think should and will beat the S&P 500. And it absolutely has to do that as I am researching. Now, every single time as I'm doing these things, it's not going to hit every single mark. Okay. Now, when I do it, the day I'm researching, obviously it has to hit these, except for the optional one except for the insider buyers. But when I come back and cycle past these the next 6 months, if you miss one of these, you are liable to get cut from the list, aka Nike, aka Lululemon, right? And several stocks that I've gotten rid of at the time. Or if I start to see a stock slow down, I feel like, hey, you did well over the last year, but take Chipotle, or somebody asked me about Chipotle a few days ago in the comments. Like Chipotle had done well over the year, but it started to slow down. That was one of those momentum indicators, and as I look at the list, you are no longer in that top 10%. You're slowing down on momentum. As I look at the list, you're not really beating the S&P 500 anymore, at least not over the last 6 months. I'm going to let you go now. Why wait? So that's how I decide it might be time to let your boy go. right? So it's stuff like that where it makes things very clear, very easy, very simple for me to decide whether to let something go or not. Now, what you decide to put on your list, you can add, subtract, do whatever it is that you want to do. Some people decide to add dividends to this list. Some people decide to add timelines to this list, and a whole bunch of other things. Warren Buffett is going to add profitability to this list. Cathie Wood is going to add some technology stuff to this list. All types of things, all types of flavors, and there are a lot of specificities and things that make my list just a bit more. But again, we talk deep detail inside of my courses, and even deeper detail inside of the members only. So there are a few things that make it a little more tailored, but that's kind of like the super high level view of it. But these are the gateway part. After a stock hits all these things, that is when I kind of go into deep research mode, because the next thing is, what is the Federal Reserve going to do? What are the laws I should be aware of, right? Because, for example, the Fed could raise rates. If I invest in a bank stock, that might mean something to me, right? That could impact my stock. So that type of stuff is going to determine whether I'm going to buy something or not. But in terms of those stocks and what stocks may be good over the next few weeks or a few months, if you want to know what those are, this is the video you want to watch next.